that happen. So, looking at my goals, to be able to afford that cabana boy, somebody was saying there ought to be a pool boy, but no, I'll go with a cabana boy. And to be able to afford that cabana boy and that lifestyle in which I don't have to work and I can just work if I want to, the only thing I could think of to do is that I need to create Acme Institute as an entity that is saleable, that is a marketable institute. So how on earth am I going to do that? That was something that I had to give some serious thought to. Where do you have to be in 10 years in order to make your 20-year goal achievable? It could be a dollar thing that you write down. If you've already been to one of those financial estate planning things where they tell you you've got to, what's your number? You have to have $1.4 million in the bank in order to be able to retire. Then maybe your 20-year goal is only having $1.4 million in the bank. Maybe it's that simple. And in order to do that in 20 years, where do you have to be along that goal line in 10 to make that happen? See what I'm talking about? You set your goal for the long term, you bring it backwards to figure out where you need to be in order to make that happen. Then bring it backwards one more step. Where do you need to be in 5 years in order to make your 10-year goal happen? I did that myself with Acme Institute, and I determined that I needed to hire quality people to work under me, and I've done that. I've found 3 educators that are teaching the pre-license class for me that have a better pass rate than I ever dreamed of having. I'm a little bit ADHD, in case you haven't noticed. And when I'm teaching the pre-license class, I tend to go squirrel and go in a little bit of another direction because I'm worried that they know everything there is to know about foreclosures and all this other stuff that's really, really complicated. And my people that work underneath me, they just stay right on task and right to the goal. And so they're better at what they do than I am. So I've taken them on board, and they're starting to get their own reputation, which is what I want. So that means I'm getting closer to being able to achieve my 5-year goal of being recognized as the home of dynamite education. So we're getting there. So what do you think you would have to do in 5 years to make your 10-year halfway goal happen? Some of you have been able to write something down. I can see that you're writing. This is not an easy task to do, but you have to do it in order to be able to achieve. But before you even go in that direction, you have to decide if you have what it takes to want to implement this. How many of you know people that are very, very happy just getting up in the morning and going to work at their day job, punching the time clock, getting that paycheck every Friday, and life is simple? As I look around this room, there aren't many of those folks here, are there? No, there aren't. We are in a very interesting time period. I just talked to Robin from the state. By the way, the state has all brand new employees, and they're really nice people. I'm an evil test writer. I work for PSI, writing test questions for brokers and salespersons exam. And I went to a workshop with 4 of the people from the state and got a chance to get to know them really well in Detroit about a month ago. And I asked Robin, and I wish I'd gotten her last name, she's actually in charge over there. She's the one whose job it is to determine if you should get your broker's license or not based on experience. And I asked her if she would be so kind as to look up the number of agents that we have today. And I just got that number from her yesterday. We're talking about human brokers, associate brokers, and salespersons. And the number she gave me is not going to be a valid number because I personally carry 3 associate brokers licenses. I have 3 different companies that I have in business. And so this is not going to be a valid number. 50,085.
50,085.
Is it all over in America or just in Michigan?
Michigan. In 2003, it was 76,000. In 2006, it was 56,000. It's 50,085. But of that 50,085, how many of you know people that hang their licenses with a referral network? I'm going to guess that number could be 12 to 15,000. You've lost half of those people that carry their real estate license. In January, only 105 people took the exam for either salesperson or broker. 105 throughout the entire state. January of this year, 105 people took the examination through PSI. To give you a comparison, back in the old days, we used to gain 5,000 new real estate salespersons and lose 5,000 real estate salespersons because they realized they didn't have quite what it took to make the cut. But if they couldn't tell me a split as to which were salespersons' exams and which were brokers' exams. How often do you have an orientation program here in Jackson? You don't? Okay. Ann Arbor used to have the monthly, they now do it quarterly, and they'll have a dozen people in each quarterly session. Traverse also does theirs quarterly and just has 8 to 10 to 12 people in their orientation session. It's a different day and age, and it's the perfect day and age for you to decide that you're going to cut out from the pack and succeed and achieve your goals. And I'm not just talking to the young people. I'm sure you all have your own personal goals that you wish to achieve, and you just have to decide what it is in order to get in that direction and make the decision. Do you have that fire in your belly, as they refer to it, to take it to the next level? You're going to have to commit to honing all your skills and learning how you can hike yourself up by your bootstraps and get yourself to that next level so that you can achieve what you need to achieve. And it's not going to be easy. You're going to meet with frustration because you're going to have to think outside the box and learn how to do things that perhaps you never thought about doing before. First of all, you need to quit wasting your time on things that you find unpleasurable. I am not selling real estate. I did, only because I don't like buyers. They're just whiny, they're nasty, they're not nice, and why should I deal with negativity? I like commercial buyers. I can deal with that, where we're going to sit down and we're going to look at the net operating income, we're going to look at the numbers, crunch the numbers, figure out the cash flow on the deal, see if it's a good deal, and look at demographics, look at all kinds of stuff so I can help a commercial buyer buy. That I can handle. Residential buyers, not so much. So that's not for me. You all have your niche, that area where you're comfortable, where you like dealing in real estate, otherwise you wouldn't be here today. Then you have to also determine the type of properties that give you the most pleasure to sell. Do you really like getting someone into that first-time home buyer? That's a goal that you like. How about those of you that have found that handyman that's that Mr. Fix-It that can buy those flippers and turn them over? How many of you have one of those clients that you really enjoy working with? Maybe that's your niche. Maybe that's the area where you don't like it all that much. Okay. She likes it. Okay, we're all cut out of different cloth. What works for you may not work for her, and vice versa. You all need to determine. And in fact, right now, ask yourself, what's my favorite type of transaction? What transaction in the past couple of years gave me the most joy? I'll bet there's some of you parental types really do like getting that first-time home buyer their first home so they can set up housekeeping with their family. More power to you, my friend. I'm glad that you like to do that. I'm glad you like to do that.
Any referrals, Gwen?
Pardon me?
Any referrals you have, any of those nasty buyers, send them on home.
Yeah.
We are sharp. You know what? That's what I'm talking about. You need to figure out where you're going, and then everything else will come on board for you. I'm real serious. You listen for opportunities. I'm going to keep that in mind, Kathy. Absolutely. And I have a list of people that have had the guts to say to me, give me that referral.
Absolutely.
And I've given out quite a few referrals. Believe it or not, let's see, I've sold 9 pieces of real estate this year, but I don't sell it the way I sell it at auction. But already this year I've given out 4 referrals. So people call me all the time, who's the best agent to get the job done for me in this area, that area, this type of real estate, that type of real estate, and I'll send them off to someone, and it's working for me. You have to develop meaningful sales forecasts in terms of number of transactions. You know how many deals you did last year, right? Would doing that many deals this year give you the same amount of money? What's your average price per property doing in your neck of the woods? This is a really cool time to be in real estate. I'm serious. We have hit a period of relative stability. This has been one rocky road. We started falling out of the sky in 2005, and it's been an ugly ride down. But you guys are the keepers. The hard part's over. You just have to figure out where you want to go next. I know as you're walking on this flat, stable piece of earth that you have, there's a whole lot of debris around your ankles that you still have to clean up. I got here a little early yesterday afternoon and I drove through your city. There's some areas that I used to teach the pre-license and broker level classes in Jackson. When I bought my house in Traverse in 2000, I quit doing that, so I haven't been around in a while. But a lot of neighborhoods have changed from the way that I remember them when I was here. I used to always carry my bicycle in the back of the van and I would go bike riding at night just for recreation. And some of these neighborhoods are a little different. There's too many for sale signs out there that I'm seeing, too many postings on some of the doors. And that stuff's got to get cleared up before we're going to start doing any type of appreciation. But I have a news flash for you. When we were red hot back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and we were appreciating as a state at 8 to 10% a year, how many of you were in business back then? How many of you got in business after 2005? You guys have it easier than some of the others because they're remembering the good old days when you could watch that HGTV show where it said put that open house sign out front and engage in multiple offers and life was simple. You remember those days. 1998 was hotter than a firecracker over in Bloomfield Hills. It was a matter of just put the sign out front and entertain multiple offers. It's just a different day and age. Those of you that started 2005, you have an edge on these folks because you're not hoping for that. You're hoping to keep going the way that you are, building your client base, and it's good. And you walk through this debris of the foreclosure stuff that's at your feet. How many of you think of yourself as a foreclosure specialist? You're getting pretty good at the short sale stuff, and you've got a market niche, and you know what you're doing. Okay,
You know.
that's great. That market's going to be gone, so as you, hopefully, yeah. 5 years, sorry. That market's not going to be down to a manageable level for another 5 years. I spend at least an hour a day trying to figure out where we are and where we're going from there, and I think this period of relative stability with bumps in it is going to be continuing for at least 5 years before we get that growth at conservatively 1 to 2% where it ought to be, because that's stability. This 8-10 was too hot. That had to happen, that it was going to fall out of the sky. Spend some quiet time each morning figuring out where you are and what you need to do to keep implementing your goals. Stay abreast of changes in your industry. Google, when you go to just google.com and you take a look at all the various options that are available in google.com, you can subscribe to word alerts. Please consider doing it. The word alert that I have condensed into a digest form, that's my morning newspaper, I use 3 words: Michigan real estate. So that's part of my quiet time in the morning. I look through every newspaper and magazine article that got published the day before with those 3 words in it. Every blog, every website that just came online fresh that has Michigan real estate as words in it. And out of I'll probably get 15 articles to look at. I'll see 3 or 4 that appeal to me that I want to look at further and figure out what's happening. Is there something new on the horizon that I need to know about? Then set that aside and just spend some quiet time reflecting on transactions that I've got in the works, things that I'm looking at towards the future, so that I stay on track and make sure that I'm doing things correctly. But that quiet time has got to be just you and perhaps a little bit of study. And by all means, get used to the notion of talking to people outside the real estate industry. When you just talk to your peers about what's happening, you may end up hearing the same old, same old. Have any of you done any studying on the life of Henry Ford? Not only was he an entrepreneur and an inventor, he was kind of a cool guy. And he knew that you ought to establish core groups of strength with other people. He used to like to go camping. He called the group that he camped with the Nature Club. And they went in their touring cars, and as he got more wealthy, they actually had a chauffeur who went in this big old Lincoln. At his first experience with the Nature Club, President Harding joined the group whenever he could, and en route to a new campsite on a rainy day, the Lincoln touring car carrying Harding, Ford, Edison, Firestone, and naturalist Luther Burbank bogged down in a deep mud in a back road in West Virginia. Ford's chauffeur went for help and returned with a farmer driving an ancient Model T. After the Lincoln was yanked from the mire, Ford was the first to shake the farmer's hand and say, "I guess you don't know who I am, but I'm Henry Ford. I made that car that you're driving." Firestone chimed in, "And I'm the man who made those tires." Then he introduced the two other campers, meet the man who invented the electric light, and the President of the United States. Then Luther Burbank, the naturalist, came forward and said, "I guess you don't know me either." And the farmer replied, "No, but if you're the same kind of liar as these other folks, you're going to tell me that you're Santa Claus." Do you have, I guess the initials that most of the local organizations call themselves is BNI? It's a business networking group.
Speaking of Henry Ford, his first Model T ran on alcohol, the second one ran on gasoline.
I didn't know that.
And that's how smart he was. And the other thing interesting is, 100 years ago, I had some friends that were living in Grosse Pointe, Detroit, rich area. Every rich woman had an electric car. And he said we couldn't hear them coming when we were playing on the street. Now, they had them 100 years ago. You think today they wouldn't be doing what they are to us, you know?
Wow, wow. I was almost going to pick on him and say, "You were there then?" No.
I wasn't there yet, almost.
And you really, do need to surround yourself with positive, productive people. Separate yourself from negativity. Those type of people are just going to be a drain on you. And don't worry about being rude. They're going to be negative. You're not going to please them anyhow. Just flat out say to them, "I'm sorry, I can't do this," and walk away. And walk away, because you have to stay positive. This is not an easy career you've chosen. Have you figured that one out? I just taught a series of broker prep classes in Saginaw. It culminated last week. And one of the gals in class said, "Boy, I'm glad I waited till I'd been in the business for 5 years before I took these classes. You'd have scared the living daylights out of me." When I teach my law classes, I really dive into every lawsuit that you could possibly get involved in to get in trouble in this real estate industry. And sometimes after that class, they walk away like first-year med students going, "Oh my goodness, oh my goodness." But at least they know how to stay out of trouble, because there's trouble lurking around every corner. Surround yourself with positive, productive people, and learn how to delegate. I'm really bad at that myself, and I have to keep reminding myself. I can sit at my desk and do nerd work all day long and forget to do what I'm really good at and what makes me business. I make business by going out in the world and networking with people and that. And when I'm sitting behind my computer doing stuff, I'm not being productive. And how many of you really do kind of enjoy getting away from people and doing that tedious work where you can just be all by yourself, limit yourself to how long you do it, and learn to delegate? The very first time in the auction business that I decided I was ready for a personal assistant. I had been in the business 2 years. And I decided I'm ready to hire a full-time secretary that's my personal assistant. I mean, she just happened to be there at the right time in the right place. I was talking to this gal who was a friend of my ex-husband. She used to bowl on the same league that he did. She had hurt her back and was off work. I had read that the unemployment office had money that you could obtain for people that had been out of work for a year, and she qualified. Because she had already had the surgery, she was getting back, she had been through rehab, starting to feel good. A whole year had gone by that she was out of the workforce. And she just seemed to have everything that I needed in a personal assistant. And to take the leap of faith, because they were only going to give me like 6 weeks free paycheck. But still, that would be 6 weeks to figure out if I could do this. We could try this on for size. And it was perfect. As soon as the 6 weeks was over, I took her on full time, including benefits, health insurance, because I've always believed that you need to, when you've got the very, very best, you need to reward them in compensation. And I had her for 4 years until she moved to Florida to take care of her aging mother. But for 4 years, it was so cool. I didn't have to think. No more grunge work. All I had to do was do what I was good at. Go out and solicit business, throw it at her, say polish this up, and get the tedious stuff done, and it made me very, very productive. You need to learn how to do this. And once you hire someone to work for you, and as I say, it's a gutsy thing, but think about the Michigan jobs. They may have perhaps some incentive today that's in compensation or salary for those people. And when you do decide to hire someone to work for you, I love that cartoon, by the way. My assistant, my administrative assistant, bless her heart, Bobby, I told her, find some illustrations for my PowerPoint presentation. Because I knew I could put the words together, and I knew I could probably find some illustrations, but she really likes doing that stuff an awful lot, and I'm better not doing all that kind of stuff. And when she found that, I always wondered why you decided to be a dog. I was fooled by the job description. And when she found that one, I thought, how perfect. I did my high school senior term paper for English class on the philosophy of peanuts, Charles M. Schulz. And there's so much that's in those cartoons. You really need to let people know what you expect of them. It's really hard to later say, you didn't do this. I didn't know I was supposed to. Write a clear and concise job description for everyone that works for you so that there's no question as to what you are expecting. When you're subcontracting, make it clear. And some of you may be a little bit soft in the middle. You know who you are. You need to tell people when you hire them or subcontract to them that initially this is a trial phase. We'll reevaluate in 1 month to make sure that you're right for me and I'm right for you. It may not work. Let them know right up front. That way, when after a month goes by and you go, I can't stand this is not working. You won't have that soft marshmallow inside of you that you have to jump over the hurdle. You'll be able to go, remember we spoke when you first came on board that we were going to sit down and reevaluate. It just isn't working. We need to move on. And instill the practice and the concept of continuous quality improvement. I'm not sure if this is something that you can grow or if it's something with which you are born. How many of you, when you walk in a room, if you see that that picture is a little bit crooked, how many of you just feel the need to, perfect, perfect. That's not a bad trait. That's not a bad trait. When you're dealing with a transaction, you're going to think in terms of some of the things that perhaps could go wrong and going to make sure that you iron those bumps out of the road before. Boy, did I love to see 3/4 of the hands pop up on that one. That was sweet. And there's so many people. I've seen people walk through a room and the rug is kicked up on the corner and it's obviously a tripping hazard and they walk right by it. And I don't even understand how people can do that. I've got kick that down, even if it's in a grocery store and it's none of my business. I just feel the need to do that. Study your business, be the expert. Have you dealt anything with social networking at all? By the way, I'm on Facebook. Feel free to friend me. I'm actually addicted to it. It's okay. If you post these silly pictures of jokes and all that all the time, I'll unsubscribe to you. But if you're just giving me your words of wisdom, my Facebook post this morning was, live this day as though you're trying to create a day to post on Facebook. It just kind of felt right. In other words, don't do anything that would shame yourself, and make sure that you make it intentional. Just do something that's going to be important. Advertising is expensive. This actually should be in my next hour that I'm teaching on promotion and negotiations. Figure out where your monies are best spent. Just because you've always put that ad in that newspaper doesn't mean that that's the best place to put it. Back up a couple slides. When I said to talk to people outside your industry, it could be your whole industry is saying, this is where we're getting success. But if you talk to your friend that has a delicatessen and they tell you that they're really happy with something that's happened by their Groupon ad that they did or some other thing, listen to what they have to say and make sure that you're spending your money in the media that is going to best benefit you. And very, very importantly, make sure that you have a balance in life. When you deal with goal setting, if you get yourself hyper-focused on that goal, you can actually get to the point that you lose balance. Getting hyper-focused on a goal is a great thing. Right now, if you were hungry and I dropped you off at the edge of the woods and said, fend for yourself, and you've never been out in nature to speak of, and you don't even know what might be out there, let's make it be August, because there's not much out there that's edible at this point. But you start walking around, and you spot a blackberry. That's what I saw, cricket. That's edible. I can eat some of that. And you eat that whole bushful, and you go, okay, that worked really well. Then you keep walking around, and you see another clump of shrubbery that looks similar to what that one was. As you keep walking through the woods, all of a sudden, all the goals come to you, and you're able to see what you're looking for. But until you figure out what you're looking for, you're not going to be able to find it. But once you get set on that goal, you can get hyper-focused, and you can lose some balance. Financially, the IRS gets really bummed out when you start commingling business assets and personal. So you need to keep that separate. Maybe they know what they're doing when they say that. You need to keep a personal life that is separate and apart from your business life in order to be able to achieve that balance. How many of you set aside a certain number of slots in your calendar during the week that you label them as appointments, but they're really appointments with your family? If you're not already doing that, think about it. One of the major top producers up in Traverse, I did an auction on a piece of property that she had listed, and I called her and said, could we meet over there at 5? And she said, to anyone else, I would say I have appointments between 4 and 6:30. To you, I'm going to say, I'm really glad that I have children, and between 4 and 6:30 are my hours with them. I'm there about the time that the bus drops them off for school. We have supper together, and then I do showings in the evening. But if you call my assistant, she'll tell you that I have an appointment at that time, but I'm available at 6:45, that I can, you just need to schedule yourself that personal time. Whoops, back up. And you can see I'm really good at PowerPoint. This one's important too. The high standards of performance and morality. When I asked how many have a droid, a third of the room raised your hand. Of the rest of you, how many have an iPad or some other iPod, some other type of a smartphone? Okay, we all have cameras with us. Out there in the world, always behave as though somebody could be pulling a camera out of their pocket. That doesn't take much for me to be able to tell you that. You have to conduct yourself in a fashion that you know that somebody could be taking a picture of you at any given time. And always behave in that manner. Very seriously, that camera comes out. I know some of you like to go out and enjoy yourself in the evening with friends and family or whatever, but if you have that cocktail in your hand and that camera's out, set it down. In fact, why not just leave it at the table when you're out walking around? You can always go back and have a drink. But it just doesn't look good, especially if it has to be that unfortunate picture where your face is looking funny at the time that you're holding a beverage. It's a bad thing, and it's going to be viral. Very seriously, anything that appears on the internet is there forever. And have you ever heard of archive.org? It's the Wayback Machine. So if something was on Facebook last week and you didn't like it and you made the person who put it up there take it down, I can go to archive.org and look up last week and find what you did last week that you're embarrassed about. So just behave. You didn't know that, did you? So, okay, where did I put my mouse? It's back on the mouse pad where it's supposed to be. Strength and weakness analysis. This is big. Okay, question. Is there one thing that you feel is stopping you from taking your business to the next level? I have a homework assignment for you. Have you ever heard of writing an affirmation statement? I wrote one 30 years ago. It's still under my desk pad at home. A motivational speaker asked me that question. Is there one thing that is stopping you from achieving true success? And stand outside yourself and talk to yourself and tell yourself something in a positive fashion that will help you get over that problem. Okay, when I first started in the auction business, I'd done my goal setting and everything. I knew what I needed to do. I knew I needed to go out at least one day a week and do cold calling like this. Hi, I'm Gwen Besner. And I'm here to serve your needs in the best way possible. Here's a brochure about what I do and all. I knew I had to do that. Trust departments, banks, attorneys, whatever. I had to do that. I was scared to death to do it. And my affirmation statement simply reads, Gwen, you're a good person. People actually like you. They don't mind meeting you. When you go into that next place, you're probably going to meet one of your new best friends. I went, wow. So that's stuck under my desk pad, and I still look at it from time to time. I've way got over my fear of cold calling in person. In fact, I love it now. I don't mind walking into a restaurant where I know no one and going and sitting down up at the bar and meeting my new best friend. And very finally, before we throw you out of here, I love this. Dr. Seuss, live with intention, walk to the edge, listen hard, practice wellness, play with abandon, laugh, choose with no regrets, appreciate your friends, continue to learn, do what you love, and live as if this is all there is, Dr. Seuss. Folks, you have been the best class I've ever had. Give yourselves a big hand.